It was an unusual period of time for me. 1957-58, when this picture came about. And there were so many ossuaries, if that's the word, things that all blended together for that movie. Had I not made Some Like It Hot, I would have missed a film in my life.
Billy Wilder's Some Like It Hot was set in 1929 during Prohibition. It tells the story of two down-on-their-luck musicians, Joe and Jerry, who are marked for death after accidentally witnessing the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Spats Colombo, played by George Raft, guns down a rival gang. Joe and Jerry flee and, masquerading as women, join a traveling female jazz band. Joe, played by Tony Curtis, becomes Josephine, and Jerry, played by Jack Lemmon, is Daphne. To seduce Sugar Kane, a blonde singer played by none other than Marilyn Monroe, who's out to find herself a sugar daddy, Joe slips into the role of an impotent millionaire. As for Jerry, he forgets he's a man when Osgood Fielding III, a real millionaire, played by Joey Brown, asks Daphne to marry him. Unmasked, the two musicians flee again, ending up on Osgood's boat. Upon discovering that Daphne's a man, Osgood remarks, "Well, nobody's perfect."
Every individual in the audience is an idiot, but together they're genius. We never ask ourselves, is it a comedy or a tragedy or a musical? We write a story and try to make it as effective and true as possible, so that people believe it.
Nicknamed Bille by his mother, Wilder was born in Vienna. As a teenager, he experienced the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In late 1920s Berlin, at the height of the Weimar Republic, Wilder discovered cinema and turned to screenwriting. To escape the Nazis, he left Germany in 1933, and the following year became a naturalized U.S. citizen. Some of his closest family members were killed in the Holocaust. In Los Angeles, Wilder encountered many fellow countrymen who were just beginning to reinvent American cinema. Douglas Sirk, Robert Siodmak, Otto Preminger, Fritz Lang, Michael Curtis, and the man who became his mentor, Ernst Lubitsch. A budding screenwriter, Wilder worked by his master's side and even squeezed a laugh out of Greta Garbo in the movie Ninotchka. Wilder soon teamed up with writer Charles Brackett, and in 1942 they expanded their collaboration to include producing and directing.
The day before, I went to Lubitsch and said, "Tomorrow morning I start shooting my first film. I'm going to crap my pants." And Lubitsch said, "I'm making my 70th film, and I still crap my pants every day."
Brackett and Wilder proceeded to produce masterpieces like Double Indemnity and Sunset Boulevard. With Stalag 17, Sabrina, and The 7-Year Itch, Wilder proved himself a master of revolutionary realism. His biting humor and acerbic one-liners became his trademark. In 1957, Wilder met the Romanian-born writer Is Diamond. Together they penned Love in the Afternoon, then Some Like It Hot, the beginning of a lifelong collaboration.
It's no use. We're not going to get away with it, Joe.
My name is Josephine, and this was your idea in the first place.
So what it began with was they talked. They talked together for 2 months, 3 months. Sometimes they sat and stared at each other for 24 hours. Is sat at the typewriter. When something happened, he would write it. Now, the structure is both of them. The basic idea is always Billy, and the structure is the two of them together, this scene by scene, and then overall basic structure. Most of the actual dialogue is. because, well, Billy, English was perfect. It was a bit formal.
When you start writing a picture, not that you have an empty sheet, you know, you have 4 million ideas just to bring order into it, get the good stuff out, you know. That's easier than just inventing from scratch, but nobody starts from scratch. You start with too much. And a writer is a bit of a kind of poet, if you want to cheat, but he also has to be an architect, he has to be an organizer, he's got to be a bookkeeper. You know, all kinds of things come into getting it onto those 130 pages.
I think he enjoyed directing much more than anything. Yeah, that's writing, you know. But once it's written and you get on that set and you have those people, that's fun. If the people know what they're doing.
The United States had won the war against fascism. But amid the recession of 1958 and record high unemployment, morale was at an all-time low. Meanwhile, a new front had opened in the Cold War. After launching Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite, and Laika the dog into orbit, the Soviet Union was leading the space race. In response, the U.S. set up its space agency, NASA. In Europe, the influence of communism was spreading, as it was in Cuba, a stone's throw from the Florida coast. The Cold War had arrived on America's doorstep. Raising fears of communist subversion at home, Senator Joseph McCarthy had launched the Second Red Scare in 1947, an anti-communist witch hunt that continued even after McCarthy was censured by the Senate until the late 1950s. At the same time, the U.S. government was moving to end racial segregation in schools, sparking a white supremacist backlash. Meanwhile, the countercultural rebellion of the Beat Generation was calling on Americans to wake up. It was against this backdrop that Wilder was mining an old German movie to develop a satire about America.
Das freut mich sehr. Wollen Sie bitte in mein Zimmer kommen?
When Billy one day said, you know, I've been thinking and I'd like you to look at an old German film called Funfair der Lieben. And I said, what? And so he said, no joke. You see if you can't find a print of that picture somewhere. And we'll look at it together, and I'll tell you what I have in mind. Amazingly, we found a copy of that picture, and we ran it and talked about it, and Billy told us. Actually, I guess what you might call just the bones of what eventually became Some Like It Hot.
Rather than drawing on the sentimentality of the original German screenplay, Wilder took his cue from the 1929 St. Valentine's Day Massacre, when gunmen working for Al Capone gunned down 7 members of a rival Chicago gang. The mob boss is played by George Raft, who had starred in the original Scarface and was known for his off-screen associations with the underworld.
The thing that made the difference is getting the threat of the gangsters, that their lives are in danger, which meant that just because they got bored being in drag, they couldn't do anything about it.
David Selznick either got a hold of the script or Billy Wilder told him the idea for Some Like It Hot. I can't remember at this point. And Selznick was horrified because everyone knew you can't mix death and comedy. Well, as Some Like It Hot demonstrates, the greatest of comedies come from bringing together things that everyone tells you can't do.
You're not going nowhere.
We're not?
I don't like no witnesses.
We won't breathe a word.
You won't breathe nothing. Not even air.
Billy Wilder wants to talk to you. Billy Wilder was a gruff German expatriate. He have all mine hair. You know, he had a little touch of that accent, would scare anybody. So I said, oh, okay. And Billy came down from the little theater, and we went into a room. And this is what he told me. I'm going to make a picture of two men, two guys, who have to dress up as women because they see a murder. One guy I'm going to get is Frank Sinatra, the other will be you, and I'm going to get Mitzi Gaynor for the girl. I said, oh, I didn't even know he said my name. He said, did you hear me? I said, yeah. He says, you will be in my movie. I said, great. Well, I was so excited.
What he really wanted all along, instead of Sinatra, was Jack. But the money people in New York didn't think that Jack at that point was a big enough money star, and they wanted Sinatra. But once Sinatra didn't show up for lunch, the way was clear for Jack. And about that time, Marilyn decided she wanted to work with him. And once you had Marilyn, it didn't matter whether Jack wasn't a big enough star yet or not.
Lou Wasserman was my agent of MCA. He went to Billy and said, you must use Marilyn. And Billy said, you think so? He said, you must. She's at a perfect point in her life for the picture. She may be trouble, but not enough trouble to make you not want to make it. Billy said, I'll do it. And the next thing I know, Marilyn is in the movie. The picture was finished then. Even before we started, I knew the three of us. Then they got Joey Brown, the four of us. But Billy knew the key to that movie was Marilyn. And when you see the movie, you know it's Marilyn.
At a time when Hollywood was banking on CinemaScope and Technicolor, Wilder had the audacity of opting for black and white and mixing up genders and genres. Farce, film noir, Some Like It Hot is both, as well as a musical comedy.
The music is absolutely central to the film. When she's singing, I'm Through with Love, I think that song is heartbreaking. Well, it's heartbreaking because of Marilyn Monroe's performance, of the character of Sugar Kowalski, of all of the elements that have been brought together. So is the music a minor aspect of this film? Not at all. It's an absolutely crucial aspect.
Goodbye to spring and all it meant to me. It can never bring the thing that used to be. For I must have you or no one. And so I'm through with love. And so I'm through with, baby, I'm through with love.
We knew each other. I had lived with Marilyn, if you'll excuse the expression, when we first came to California. I was 22, she was 19, and we went out together for about 6 months. I met her at Universal. She wasn't under contract. She wasn't working. I was starting out. It was a wonderful time with her, those early years. And there we are, the next thing I know, we're going to make this picture together. No one knew it but Marilyn and I, that we had this history. So everything we did was based on something we had already done. And Billy liked it. He liked the chemistry between us. He didn't know, nobody knew. I loved it.
When Marilyn took on the role, she'd already shot The 7-Year Itch with Wilder. She'd been working in New York, attempting to break free of her typecast Hollywood role as the dumb blonde. She brought along her coach, Paula Strasberg, wife of the actor's studio director, Lee Strasberg. Also on set was her husband, playwright Arthur Miller, who, strapped for cash, had talked her into doing the movie. But Marilyn hated the sexual innuendo and the heroine's name, Sugar. It was the recipe for a nightmare shoot.
And that, God, Arthur Miller. He thought the picture was terrible. He thought she should be playing the Virgin Mary or something. But Arthur Miller was a son. Yeah.
Second day of shooting with Marilyn, he knew he was going to have trouble. Marilyn did the first scene in the movie where she walked down to the train station. And when Billy Wilder yelled, "Cut," she looked at Paula Strasberg to see if she did it right. So he said, "Let's do it again." And Billy Wilder said, "Let's do it again." So they did it again. And just before he said, "Cut," and he looked at Paula before Marilyn did. He said, "How was that for you, Paula?" And Paula, it was okay for Paula. After that, Paula never stuck her nose in it. She was a very disagreeable woman and caused a lot of trouble. Walked around with an umbrella over Marilyn. "Relax, relax, relax." That's all she'd say to Marilyn. "Relax, get out of here."
I don't think she made a move without Paula.
No, she never did. When she finished a scene, Paula was always in the back in this big shroud she used to wear, it was like a burqa. You know, she wore a brown one. And after each scene, Marilyn would look straight back at Paula, and you could see Paula, and she'd either go, yes or no. And if it was no, we shoot it again.
Whether Lee and Paula Strasberg thought she really had acting potential, or whether they thought that they would get a great deal of publicity if they took her in, which they did, they took her in. And the Strasbergs became the parents Marilyn never had.
Billy Wilder faced another challenge. How would he bring Josephine and Daphne to life? How would he make women out of the two male leads, Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon? Tony Curtis, the athletic, handsome young man from Brooklyn, displayed a convincing feeling for sexual ambiguity.
I wasn't a man anymore. I was maybe more of a girl. I could behave like one. I saw how people treated me, pulled their chairs out. Jack and I, on the set, we would be waiting to work. We loved it. And there's Joey Brown waving at us. And flowers come. You know, it was... we got suckered into it. Do you know? We were strong men, but all of a sudden, me? Oh. You know, it became a double standard for us, for Jack and for me.
When we got, Tony and I, what we thought were the right makeups, Billy said, okay, he says, now. We were on the Samuel Goldwyn lot where we shot. He says, go to the ladies' room. And we said, what? He said, you go to the ladies' room. They're going to find out whether this works or not. He says, go to the ladies' room.
Dolores, dear, you sleep tight, you hear? Nighty-night, Emily.
Toodaloo.
Oh, about that toodaloo. Steady, boy. Just keep telling yourself you're a girl. I'm a girl. You're a girl. I'm 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 a... Get a load of that rhythm section. I'm a girl. I'm a girl. I'm a girl. I'm a girl. Good night, sugar.
Good night, honey.
Since 1934, the Hays Code had governed American cinema, applying rigid moral scrutiny to films. But increasingly, filmmakers were challenging the stifling regulations, and Wilder was a master at outfoxing the censors. In 1950s Hollywood, gay actors went to great lengths to hide the true nature of their sexuality. One only has to think of Cary Grant, Randolph Scott, Burt Lancaster, Montgomery Clift, or Rock Hudson. Tony Curtis himself never denied sexual encounters with men.
Yes, you'll feel better.
Competition from television, now in color, put pressure on Hollywood. In the space of a year, film production dropped by 25%. Movie theaters started closing as American families discovered the joys of the TV dinner. And the small screen found an unexpected ally in the House Un-American Activities Committee. Its probe into alleged communist influence in the American motion picture business had been terrorizing Hollywood since 1947. In televised hearings, artists and technicians faced grueling questioning. Many cracked under pressure, choosing to denounce colleagues rather than risk losing their jobs. Arthur Miller was one of those who remained steadfast.
Mr. Miller, you were charged with contempt because you wouldn't talk about your friends. How do you feel about it now?
I feel the same as I ever did, which is that I don't believe that a man has to become an informer in order to practice his profession freely in the United States.
To survive, American cinema accommodated itself to television. The networks needed a steady supply of films to fill their broadcast hours, mostly B-movies produced by lesser-tier Hollywood studios. The directors who had forged the Hollywood legend, names like Ford, Hitchcock, and Hawks, were making their last movies. Dusk was falling on Hollywood's golden age. It was an era of suspicion and deception, as Billy Wilder illustrates in his inimitable style. America is no longer what it seems. Coffins don't hold corpses. Funeral homes are bars. Birthday cakes harbor mobsters. Diamonds are a girl's best friend, and women are sometimes men.
The greatest social commentary in American movies is always in comedy. Take Tootsie as another example. It's not just that you got these number 1 and 2 on the AFI polls of the greatest comedy, that both of them are about drag. Both of them are also extended social critiques. Tootsie, I think, more than Some Like It Hot.
When Marilyn Monroe began shooting in San Diego, she was already in a precarious state of emotional and mental health. Marriages, abortions, attempted suicide, one-night stands, stress, and loneliness had all taken their toll. Her marriage to Arthur Miller was already on the rocks. Alcohol and medication eased the emotional pain of a series of miscarriages, chronic insomnia, and repeated bouts of depression. She had been hospitalized several times. On set, Monroe was visibly distracted and finding it hard to concentrate.
She would lose interest in the middle of a scene. Her mind would just disappear. She was all excited about opening the bottle of champagne, And then she would look away and for a second stop the scene inside of herself and then come back. Billy saw that. We all saw that. We all saw when from her vivaciousness, she just disappeared. She was tired. She wasn't thinking well. I didn't let her lose interest. You know, I was a good enough soldier to see what I had to do. In that kissing sequence, she had so many opportunities to drift away. And I'd pat her on the ass, put my hand under her blouse, you know, which startled her. So that way we were able to continue. Otherwise, Marilyn was really in bad shape. I felt she would never make a movie again.
She was always late.
We'd sit around and wait, and we'd still get paid.
And sing. We sang a lot.
Yeah.
And none of us were singers. We just sang a lot down among the sheltering ponds and by the sea, by the sea. That's what we did. We used to come every morning and rehearse.
The most significant thing, of course, is the whole Marilyn and 1,000 takes on things, which I was not involved in, except I used to drove me crazy because the famous one with the 87 takes, she has her back to the camera. If at any time Billy can stop shooting and dub it later, nobody, there are 1,000 actresses in Hollywood at the time who could do Marilyn's voice. So it was just a contest of wills between them and all this thing about how terrible this was. And both of them a little bit at fault.
I had no problem with Monroe. Monroe had problems with Monroe. She had problems with herself. She was slightly discombobulated at all times. She had great difficulties to concentrate. Something was always biting her, eating her. And it was like pulling teeth, you know. But by God, you know, when you were through with her, when you suffered through that thing, through the 30, 40, 50 takes sometimes, or through her lateness, you had something there, you know, something absolutely unique that cannot be duplicated. And you forget after the picture is finished and you had a rough time before. Not that she was mean or anything like that.
Monroe was also troubled by changing beauty standards. The voluptuous female ideal of the 50s that Monroe epitomized, the sex symbol with the voice of a child, was being single-handedly overturned by toy maker Mattel with the tall, slender silhouette of the Barbie doll. Signs of her distress were beginning to show.
Marilyn Monroe was pregnant, and Billy Wilder came to me and he said, look, we need someone to do her publicity stills, and we'd like you to do them for us with Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis. They would be using my body and her face, and it worked out very, very well. And this was really a closed set when we were shooting this. No one was allowed on the sound stage.
I never even knew you did it. None of us did. I never knew you did it. This is right. None of the girls knew.
I think part of Marilyn Monroe's power as an actress, as an icon, is that the loss is written in her face. The loss is in the eyes. And more than any sex pot in American culture that has had a lot of sex pots, Marilyn Monroe could bring tears to both men and women's eyes.
All right, girls, let's take it from the top. And put a little heat under it.
running wild, lost control, running wild, mighty bold, feeling gay, reckless too, carefree mind all the time, never blue, always going, don't know where, always showing, I don't care, don't love nobody, it's not worthwhile, all alone, running wild.
There's a day when she did show up on the set, but she locked herself in her dressing room, and she wouldn't come out. So Billy Wilder had to find a way to get her out of her dressing room. And that's when he came to me and said, I'm going to put the playback on to Running Wild. There's the microphone. You know the lyrics. I want you to sing to the playback. The playback was running for about a half a minute while I was singing to the playback. Marilyn heard that, opened her dressing room door, and slowly walked onto the set and stopped in front of Billy Wilder. Never said a word. And Billy Wilder looked at her and said, let's go to work. Because he was brilliant. He knew exactly how to get Marilyn to do what he felt was right. He was a genius. I told you, he could have been a professor of psychology in Vienna because he knew just how to work with people.
It's very, very difficult to make a set rule, you know. You treat every actor the same way. You know? It's like, you know, like a psychiatrist having various patients of different illnesses on the couch. And you have to be all kinds of things, not just a psychiatrist to them. You have to be a masochist, you have to be an SS man, you have to be a father confessor priest, you have to cuddle them, you have to be sweet to them, be very severe with them. It just depends, you know. They're all, thank God, they're all human beings with different problems.
Billy was an Überstandartenführer. We never thought we pleased him. I didn't. I never thought he liked me, you know, I'm telling you the truth now. I did the best I could. He never showed his preference. He liked Jack. He liked Jack for his tumbling comedy. My comedy was a little less than that. And so maybe that was what it was. But I'm sorry to say I don't think he liked me.
Don't say that. There must be some girl someplace that could.
If I ever found a girl that could, I'd marry you just like that.
Would you do me a favor?
Certainly. What is it?
I may not be Dr. Floyd or a male brother or one of those French upstairs girls, but could I take another crack at it?
All right, if you insist.
Anything this time?
I'm afraid not.
When I'm getting kissed by Marilyn Monroe, lying down, my foot goes up in the air. So I told Izzy Diamond. That was a piece of business I thought of because I had, if you'll excuse the expression, an erection who was here and made my foot go up. And went up getting kissed by her. It could have been. So I told that to Izzy Diamond. I said, don't tell Billy I told you. So Izzy looked at me peculiarly, like I understand what you mean. So we went to Billy Wilder. I said, what about Tony lifting his foot in the middle of the kisses? He says, good, do it. And he looked at me and smiled, and I knew it, and I did it, and it's in the movie.
I walked onto the set, and there was Billy with these things going like this. And I thought, what the hell is he doing? He says, here, take these with you, and in between every line, just go, da, 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 da. I thought he's made a disaster out of this scene. When I saw the film and heard an audience reaction, laughing all through from the line, all through this, before then they never missed the next line. That was the whole idea.
I'm engaged. Congratulations. Who's the lucky girl? I am. What? Osgood proposed to me. We're planning a June wedding. What are you talking about? You can't marry Osgood. You think he's too old for me? Jerry, you can't be serious. Why not? He keeps marrying girls all the time. But you're not a girl, you're a guy. And why would a guy want to marry a guy? Security. Jerry, you better lie down. You're not well. Will you stop treating me like a child? I'm not stupid. I know there's a problem. I'll say there is. His mother. You need her approval. I'm not worried because I don't smoke.
Well, the last sentence. The whole last scene in the boat was written the day before it was shot. And my husband wrote it and took it over to Billy and left me a copy. And when he came home, I had read the rest of the script except for the last scene, and he asked me what I thought. And I said, I think it's a wonderful scene, but the last line is flat. And he went, oh my God, you too. He had just come from 2 hours with Billy, in which Billy had said, we got to find something better for the last line.
Joey Brown says, well, nobody's perfect. The music immediately comes up and out the end. You are out of the movie theater, you are in the parking lot, and you are driving on the way home before you say, what the hell does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. There's no logical ending to this movie. Nobody's perfect is a pie in the face of the audience.
I smoke. I smoke all the time. I don't care. Well, I have a terrible past. For 3 years now, I've been living with a saxophone player. I forgive you. I can never have children. We can adopt some. But you don't understand, Osgood. I'm a man. Well, nobody's perfect.
After its world premiere in New York in March 1959, Some Like It Hot was released nationally in the U.S. Within a few months, it was a triumphant success. The film only collected 1 Oscar for its costumes in a year when the epic Ben-Hur swept up a record-breaking 11 Academy Awards. But a few months later, it won Best Picture at the Golden Globes, where Jack Lemmon and Marilyn Monroe also picked up the prizes for Best Actor and Actress. The film reached European theaters in September, at the height of the French Nouvelle Vague, screening alongside films like The 400 Blows, The Adventure, and Hiroshima Mon Amour. And U.S. critics voted Some Like It Hot the best comedy of all time.
I finally wrote a book, and I call it, I Thought We Were Making Movies, Not History. We just don't know. We set out to make the best movie we know how to make. The fact that 50 years later, people are still enjoying it, nobody can anticipate that, nobody.
It's funny, and it's still funny. There's no other reason. It has nothing significant to say whatsoever. Maybe that's why they still like it. I don't know.
Jack Lemmon became Billy Wilder's favorite actor, but the director never teamed up again with Tony Curtis. And although he called her a true comic genius, he never made another movie with Marilyn Monroe, who died 3 years later in 1962 after a downward spiral of depression, drugs, mental illness, scandal, and exhaustion.
You know I'm going to be 25 in June.
You are?
That's a quarter of a century. Makes a girl think.
About what?
About the future. You know, like a husband. That's why I'm glad we're going to Florida.
She was nice. She was so impudent and childish, childlike.
Boop-boop-be-doo. I wanna be kissed by you, just you, nobody else but you. I wanna be kissed by you alone.
It gives me a stature, you know. I don't do anything that would hurt Some Like It Hot in any of the movies I made, you know. I felt that every one of them, even the lousy ones that turned out lousy, I had to do well in it. From beginning to end. Even in the scenes that I'm not in, I'm part of it. I like that movie a lot.